printed bookshops, but then they printed everything.
Yeah,
So when you now say the printed word, I mean, like your book is a powerful lens through which we can explore the world. Are you talking to black people? Are you being?
I think that's one of the challenges in today's world, reading. You know, there's that popular saying where they say if you want to hide something from the black man, put it in a book. Yeah, I think we read. I think the rate of reading is increasing. It's getting better.
It is increasing. Exactly. I said it at the start of the show.
Yeah. So I'm a publisher, so I know this for a fact, and that's why some of us do what we do. You know, we keep pushing, doing everything we can, hoping that someday we'll get a good enough index, you know, that will turn things around. So yeah.
Now this one is self-explanatory, but then we just like to talk about it. You say in your book, shame cannot kill a man who is already dying. Lovely one. I love that. But let's end with this. There's still so many. Go look for the book. But let's end with this. You say it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Can you situate that to the situation that we have in this country?
Wow.
Because I need to ask this, because if you check my WhatsApp status, every week I put, in fact on a daily basis, I put things that you never find, you know. People will look at my WhatsApp status and are like, Benji, where do you get these things? You sure you understand? There's this northern senator who, you know, veranda of his house, the balcony, and then he was throwing money to the same people that he and his fellow people impoverished.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then he was throwing money, and you could see these women with their hijab and everything falling on themselves to pick 5 naira, 10 naira, 20 naira.
Yeah.
So, you know, these are the same people that have been fooled.
True.
Now, they do not understand that this same person throwing money to them has fooled them. Do you understand?
I think in some way the previous question about education, about reading, sort of helps in situations like this.
Like this.
To, you know, remove the hoodwink. That's what knowledge does. That's what education does. You know, it sort of like informs us, so we're better prepared. We see things for what they are. You know, so.
True. All right, let me tell you what I like about your book. There's still, maybe we've been talking for a bit. Koro, that name, I used to know that name somewhere. I didn't know. It looks sounds very similar to, but I don't know. Okay, now we've looked at different parts of the book. We looked at some of sayings and quotes in the book. We've looked at characters in the book. We looked at the plot of the book. Now, what I like about your book, this is the very typical Othuke who romances words as if they are a beautiful lady. Yeah? Now, I love your descriptive prowess and your use of what I call the naive conversation. Now, but before I talk about this naive convo, let's see how you describe. On page 3, you said, no candlelight leaks from the doorways. I'm like wondering, leaks, that's fine. And then on page 4, you say, I am awakened by wind, loud, rancorous, like a bitter quarrel between friends. I'm like, hey, where are you taking me? You understand? I'm wondering, man. And then, how about the one on page 38, where you say, we step through the gate to the smell of mother's cooking. A flock of egrets flies in formation overhead. There's a rainbow astride the sky. The bell of the cathedral reverberates through the town, calling on the faithful. And I'm like, waiting. You're talking about mother's cooking. From there we enter sky. From there we enter rainbow. You know, so I love what you do. You know, there's a way you write, and I love it. Now, a very good example of the power and the beauty of what I call the naive conversation. You'll find in the conversation between the police corporal and the inspector, the superior. And you find things like, waiting kill him, the inspector asks. Death, sir. Now, death kill him? Yes, sir. Now, as funny and annoying as the recruit will appear to the discerning, one cannot take away the sincerity and the naivety of the junior officer. And such convo for me brings out not just the flair and the beauty in a book, but it makes the story natural. So kudos to that. Now, there's even somewhere in the book where you said her British accent flutter from her lips like caged birds, tasting freedom for their waiting. Othuke, now because of who will come here. So many. There's so many. Now, what I don't like about the book, I also like the fact that we have the image. I love this image.
Cover.
And not just the image of the cover, the texture that I feel about the book. I love what you did with that. And then looking at the image, the cover in itself, you played with different types of printing. There is this one that shines is what? This is not embossing. You understand? And then you did the normal printing. And then you did the glossy kind of printing. All of that. I also further like the image, the cover, because there's a song by Ghetto Boys, My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me. We find that a lot in the book, and here it is. You have the somebody's head, and there's so many things are happening in that head. You're like, you understand, it leaves so much to your own imagination as you read the book. Go get the book. And then what you did that I love the most, if you do your book like this, I love the color play. There's white on this side.
It's symbolic, the preacher.
Let me finish with that one, but it's fine. Do you understand? But you've said it all, okay? Yeah. You've said it. I should bring the bagels here, but quickly, take home for me. And I wrote quite a few. I'm going to pull through them. The first one for me is what I called spiritual or metaphysical, and then our mental states. Now, apart from the subconscious perception of things that we call dreams, as we see on page 8 and so many, the convo between Anthony and Grace. We didn't talk about Grace when we're talking about characters. Nurse Grace on page 11 sucks into spirituality. Now, you see Anthony asking Grace, do you sometimes feel a presence where you are alone? Like there are spirits lurking around and even sometimes hear them call your name? Not calling my name, but definitely a presence. Yes. And I'm like, where is Michael Jackson and Thriller? But, and then you go on. Sometimes I think there are dead people trying to talk to us. There must be someplace watching, trying to communicate. Don't you think? Death can't be the end of everything. I had to bring this out because this stands alone for me. It has nothing to do with the health situation of Anthony. Rather, you're taking us into the subconscious, into our mind, into spirituality. You're taking us away from physicality. All right, but let's leave all of that. Then the second one for me is medical condition and the neglect of prescribed medication, hypertension. Now, we see the major advantage of early detection, but the major disadvantage of neglecting medical advice and use of prescribed drugs on page 20 in the convo between Okemute and Grace. Okemute, you need to go to a specialist hospital for a complete workup. There will be no need for that. Why? I already know that I'm dying. I was diagnosed with hypertension when I was 16. I was in denial at the time, so I rejected the prescribed medicines. And then at 23, my heart failed. The doctor said my kidneys have been affected. Now, I don't need to say further. We need to get to a point where we need to start listening to specialists, especially when they deal with us. If at age 16, I'm not saying that things would have turned better, but at least that kind of conversation would never have even appeared in your book. If at 16, a specialist looks at you and then gives you the prescribed medicine, and then you refuse to take it.
Anthony refuses to take it.
Anthony. Now, a good number of us suffer today for what we failed to have done, some few years back. We can all relate to that. But let's leave that and move on. The third one for me is prophetic pronunciations or pronouncements. Now, on page 27, you're right. You and your brother are arrows that have shot into the world. You will leave footprints, even where giants tremble to walk upon. For me, this situates the power of the tongue. And then we see further on page 80, same parents telling Okemute and his siblings who try to hawk or sell dough, but weren't much successful. And they go on to say, Okemute, our instincts never lie, never fail. In life, sometimes you win, other times you lose, but you never give up. You keep trying again and again and again until you win. Now, this I must bring out, and which I've done, because we're talking about a society today, Nigeria, that none of us, we didn't know that it would get this bad. I'm not pushing it to a particular party, because if you ask me, all the parties are the same. They all steal money. You get what I'm saying? All right, the person that will help this country may be someone like me. And if you remove me from the $100 bill and put me and make me the president of this country, maybe I'll just steal the money in Abuja only. Okay? But really, what I'm just trying to bring out is we're looking at parenting. The kind of parenting that we should be looking at now to help us repair this country, maybe in another 10, 15, 20 years, is the kind of parenting that would rather not look at what I can bring as a child, but to go back to the way it was, so we can start to instill, pronounce good things into the lives of our kids. Tell them that, yes, you might be failing now, but you will make it. Tell them that you're not good enough now, but you can be better. Keep developing us by even the things that you say with your mouth. That's the kind of parenting that we need. So I love that part, what you do with that. Number 4, extravagant electoral process and money politics. On page 73, you capture one of the reasons why our politicians and leaders will continue to steal us blind. Go look for the book. I don't want to dwell on that. And move on to the next one, which is spiritual healers and charlatans. Now, where do I start to count from? Is it the ones from Honorable Auntie Becky or Charlotte, aka Herbicide, who claims that her clients put her in expensive hotels, all expense paid, and commandeers the family's kitchen, or where? Or the one that tells Okemute that he will lose his memory and take to the street like common madman? We find them scattered all about the book and even in our lives. They promise to heal us, collect our hard-earned money, but no solution. Some even leave us like we find in the book, worse than they met us. However, we still get to meet a few genuine ones, like we see in the book about the chairman who connected the forest, what Oro whispered in Okemute's ears, and of course the preacher. Let's leave that and then move on to pensions show of shame. We see how terrible and inhuman the people in position of authority have treated us, especially where pensions of people who have put in better part of their productive years into work, but have been denied their due simply because a few rogues have stolen the money due to them. Now, I want to thank God for the government of OBJ, Obasanjo, who saw the rot and then introduced monetization and pension managers. But even at that, the story of Maina is still very fresh in our minds. A lot of people are in penury, and even some of them have died simply because they need to leave Lagos and go to Abuja for one form of stupid verification or not. Before I talk myself into trouble, let me move on to the last one. And this is the power and potency of ancestral causes. Is this still relevant in 2021? Now, we find this on pages 151 all through 157, as we follow the story of Okemute's father to his family about the generational history of the town, and of Ozue, aka Ogwara, meaning giant, aka the lion, and the curse that he placed on the people and the village of Aviara. Are these causes still potent today? Could it be the reason of the disease ailing Anthony Okemute? Can it? Let me leave it. Go get the book. That's what I've written. But then there's so many that I didn't touch on. Othuke, if you're to give us 2 take-homes, apart from this one that I've read, what would these two be?
For me, the biggest, I feel, the biggest takeaway from this work for me is guilt. It runs through every page. If you read through the story, I'm sure you understand what I mean. The reason why the character was ill in the first place.
No, I understand where you're going.
Everything.
I saw that as well.
Beautiful. So for me, that was one of the biggest take homes. Then there's family.
There's family.
Like we talked
Family
about.
first. Exactly.
You know, the power of family.
That also, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then there's
And then there's friendship.
There's friendship. There's even the afterlife. Where do we go from here? You know, a lot of people when they hear death, they say, "God forbid, this is not my portion." So whose portion is it? These are things that
It's
we need
definitely
to
not my
start
portion.
talking
But
about.
wait. Is it your portion?
No, but I mean,
So-
these are conversations
talking about?
we need to start having.
Mm.
You know, we need to start talking about death, dying, what next. You know, the people you're leaving behind. You need to start wondering about where you're going from here. Things like that. You know.
All right. It's been wonderful, but then.